Hello, I'm Mark Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have the pleasure of Hayley Roberts, CEO of Distology, in the virtual studio. How are we doing, Hayley?
Very good, thank you, Mark, and bless you for inviting me. I very rarely get invited on to do.
Hopefully,
I'm a woman.
Hopefully the first of many appearances on this show, because I'd like to hear your views. So I want to go straight into it. The reason we've got this series coming out, we've had a few guests on already, because the Women's Festival's coming up now, I think in 4 or 5 or 6 weeks' time now. And I know it's been going 3 or 4 years' time, and I know you're on the judging panel. So I'm always interested to get your views from a judge, but also your views as a woman on the industry. So as an industry, the awards have gone for like the last 2 or 3 years, and I hope I don't say this in the wrong way, but most men, I think, in the channel would have wondered why this award ceremony had even started. So what do you think, why the reason it started, and what's it trying to do to actually try to attract women into the channel?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle sometimes with the questions that ask why we do the things we do, why we call stuff out, why we make an exhibit or start a movement. But I think there's always been inherently a problem because of years and years and years of conditioning to fit into certain roles. So by making a festival about women's successes, not applauding women just because they're a woman, therefore they've got a handicap. So haven't they done well, and patronising and being sort of positive discrimination. I think it's a case of saying that here's a platform where you can absolutely be proud of your achievements. And I think that's why it was started. And I got involved on the basis that I wanted to hear more stories about people doing well in business generally, and women having, I suppose, an ability to enter what has been traditionally a very male environment. But I wouldn't want to see that continuing in the future. We shouldn't have to segregate all of the diverse areas of the world, such as, gender and race and religion. Why would we do that? Because effectively we're saying, well, you're a great human being only in that circle. Outside of that circle, you're all right, but if we're condensing and shortening the pool or shallowing the pool, then you're okay. So I don't want to see that. But what this is showing is there's talent in the industry,
yeah,
regardless of gender. But isn't it great that in a traditionally male industry, which most industries have been, because traditionally men went to work and women stayed at home hundreds of years ago and up to fairly recently, there is that ability to say, look, let's applaud you, but then let's set a statement where you are showing people, other women, other diverse areas, that nothing is a barrier, and let's just get out there and applaud human beings for doing a great job.
Do you know what, Hayley? You've articulated that really well, because I've actually never thought of that myself. The Women's Festival being a celebration of women that is in an industry dominated by men, and actually we've got some absolute rock stars in the industry, and we should celebrate them. So that's great. You've actually mentioned that. Now, the sector you've already said, and I agree, is dominated by men. It's 84% men, 16% women. Now, you mentioned already there's other sectors that are completely dominated by male as well. So what are your views on this? Does it really matter that it's dominated by men and there's not enough women, or do we actually really need to do something about it? So, that's why we're obviously trying to educate people to actually get more women in. But does it really matter that we actually change that dial?
Yeah. I think it matters that we give equal opportunities to every diverse sector. I think that where traditionally we've always relied on the fact that men could step up to the pace and plate rather, and take on the job, and women have been constrained. Women constrain themselves as much as we as women are constrained by society and culture, etc. And I think that it does matter. Yes, it matters that diversity in any company brings new ideas. So, and if there has been a traditional problem, which there has been, I mean, I'm not Google, right? But if you Google it in every industry, there is a massive problem with gender pay, with gender equality, with discrimination against, traditionally sort of more minority groups. But I mean, women are 51% of the population. We're not a minority group.
Right.
So it absolutely matters that we're creating an open pool of talent that will benefit every business. So yes, it does matter, because I think where tradition, there is a saying, isn't there? I don't know, it was Albert Einstein who said, if you do the same thing you've always done, don't expect to get different results.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting to succeed in business, if you're wanting to succeed in every aspect of your life, if you're building a company or growing an area, then you've got to look at what you're doing today and shake the tree a little bit, right? Switch it up a gear, because you've got another 50% of the population who are as talented as men, if not sometimes more so. And then why aren't you then pulling on that resource of pure talent, collectively, men and women, and building the best businesses that you can build, rather than saying, well, I can't do it because I don't have enough women to go out, or I don't have enough good men. There's so much more we can do. So I think, yes, giving equal opportunity, but we can't deny the fact that there's hundreds of years of conditioning that we've been built from, or this has been built from, and also the small changes that we can all make to actually start changing it, shaking it up a bit.
What do you think, you talk about shaking it up a bit there, what do you think the one thing that men can do to be allies of women in tech? Because there's definitely a naivety out there in the channel. There's 100% of naivety. Every employer that I speak to wants more women in technology. Half of me thinks they just want more women just to fill their quota and just to get this balance. It's not even about the right talent. They just think, actually, we look around, oh my God, we haven't got any women in the room. Let's just get 2 women, regardless if they can do the job, which is actually even more where it's a bigger problem.
Yeah.
But what do you think men can do to actually start realising and being educated and trying to be allies of women in technology and realising it's actually...
Yeah, I'm assuming here that you're meaning that men have the control on hiring women in that situation, which is, or hiring generally, which is a problem in itself, and quite honestly, I think that's...
Yeah, it is.
I think that anybody who sees any discrimination needs to call it out.
Right.
And that's across gender, that's across race, that's across religion. You call it out. If somebody's being discriminatory for all the wrong reasons, which most of them are wrong reasons, then absolutely call it out. And don't sit there in silence. I mentioned earlier that when we spoke that, if you're talking to other women, or you've got women in your family and you're really, passionate about supporting their career journeys, don't keep it wrapped up. Don't let it be your best kept secret. Do something about it. I think we heard somebody on your podcast the other day who was talking about getting off their arse and doing something about it. It's very true. You've simply got to make the changes yourself and go into schools. Actually go to your local school. If you've got children, go to your children's school. It doesn't matter if you think you're not going to make a difference. You absolutely will, because those 1 or 2 people in that school who might grow up and get into technology did so because you had a conversation. Yeah. And if we all did that, think of that scale. And that's what Channel's all about, scaling. So if you go in there and do something, in one school, each person takes a school each, whether it's a school that their children go to or their friends' children or whatever, and has a presence, and do a very short talk to some very, very wide-eyed and sponge-like children, which is where it should start. Talk about technology. Talk about how exciting it is. Talk about the barriers to entry are very low, but the rewards are so high.
It's funny you say that. It was interesting because I had a client, well, not a client, a man, David Critchley, email in directly from the podcast the other day about his daughter coming from university, and we've just got her a job today, funny enough. So that's great news. So you're right, it is education. He emailed in from the one of the women in tech. I think it was Julie Simpson's post. Yeah. And he said, can I get her a job? And of course, it's the first female graduate that I've had. I'm thinking she wants to go in technology. Fantastic. We got her a job straight away. So you're right. It does work. And it is education about it, because people don't do enough. Now, it's well documented. It's only been, I think it's 16.9% women in technology. The dial hasn't moved for 10, 12 years at all. It's hardly gone up or down. What is stopping people joining this fantastic industry? You've joined this fantastic industry. You've made a huge success. What's stopping other women joining? I
think awareness. There's some obvious industries that anybody would get into straight from A levels. And if you're talking about from GCSEs or A levels, of when we're asked what career do we want to go into, technology isn't necessarily still on the top 5, I would imagine. And certainly in terms of degree choices, it won't be, because you've got to be pretty technical to go and do computer science. But, you know, I don't think that anybody's particularly stopping getting into the industry. I just don't think we are open enough. I don't think it's being promoted enough in all of the areas to get to attract the right talent. And, you know, I employ people from a very diverse background. I've never taken anybody bar a technical person from this industry. And there are 2 main reasons for that. Firstly, that we're in the Northwest, so we're not in Silicon Valley, so there isn't an abundance of people who've got the experience. But mostly, and more importantly, it's because I believe in transferable skills. I believe that by promoting and developing people internally and looking at their energy and their attitude and their core competencies, I have a far stronger team than I have by diluting. It's a bit like, you know, your air freshener in your car, your air conditioning unit, and you can do that button that churns the air internally.
Yeah.
It's a bit stale, kind of works, you still breathe. Do you see my point?
Yeah.
But yeah. By the way, I use analogies a lot. My team love it. Often they're shit. I don't care. But that, it's like that. Whereas if you get that fresh air coming in, you know, it's so much more exciting and energetic. And, you know, don't be frightened to take somebody who's so passionate about what they do. You know, they're energetic, they just want to learn and then grow them. And that's actually, Distology team are made up of those people. They've never, ever been involved in channel before. So I'm now creating a churn of new people coming from all sorts of industries going, but this is the best, this is the reason. And you know what? They know that now. And they knew it straight away. They were like, I love the energy, but what do? I need to learn. Oh my God, I'm panicking. But we're bringing them through. So rather than saying, what have you done before, replicate that here, by that point, some people have lost a bit of their mojo, right?
Yeah.
So attract new talent, open your minds up a little bit more. I'm absolutely sure that some of my job descriptions in the early days were slightly more male orientated with some of the language I use. They're slightly more technical. And I say male orientated because technical would denote that was the case. And certainly a couple of the ladies that work for me have said that. And they were a little bit scared of coming into a technical business because they thought, oh, I've got to be technical and I'm not. And they were guarded. They thought, well, you know, maybe I'll learn, maybe I won't. In fact, the way I started my career was that after I graduated, I had 2 options. I had an option to go on the IBM graduate scheme, or an option to work as a business development manager for a toiletries company that was supplying into Next and Marks and Spencer's. Now, I did business studies. What do you think I went with?
Toiletries?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. Do you know why? When I went to the assessment centre for IBM, I looked at these people. They looked grey and they looked ill, and they just looked, and it wasn't very sexy. Oh. And I went into toiletries because I knew the supply chain. I got
toiletry sexy. Hayley, toiletry sexy.
I was on the men's skincare account for Next. But I got it. I got the supply chain. I conceptualized where it started, where it ended. I got the consumer piece in my head. I was confident I could make a difference. And I can only go on my own experience, but that was what turned me off. I thought, I'm going to have to learn, and I don't know whether I'm excited by that product area, because I thought I'd have to just be looking at technology all day. I didn't think about the adoption rates of technology. Now, this was many years ago now, right? Not that many, obviously, but many, and some people, I'm in denial. But I have to say, nowadays, our technology that we use from a business point of view, and even enterprise grade technology, is far easier to use, much more consumer looking in terms of the GUIs. And so, you know, it is exciting. And you know, my marketing manager, she wasn't in this industry before. And I said, you know, I bet you any money, 2 months down the road, you know, you are going to be talking about things that you never thought you would. And she's been here about 6 months. No, probably
Claire, yeah.
Claire.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Now, so Claire's fab. So Claire, 8 months. We did a QBR today, and I sort of looked at her and I went, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. So she's brilliant, right? So this is what I mean. But she's so it just passes her by. She's picked it up because I don't think it's to do with the product or the technical aspect of things. You know, we work in a tech industry, yes, we do, but it's all about the people. You know that, Mark. It's all about the attitude and it's all about the people. It's a people business. It's networking. It's connectivity. We're hardwired for connection as humans. So we have to make it more human to attract more talent.
So I've made a great point there. How can we raise awareness when people think coming into technology is you've got to be a bit of a geek or you've got to be really good at coding or something like that when there's thousands of other jobs actually in the industry? So how can we raise awareness that it's not just geeky people are going into it?
Yeah, so there's to me, the horse is kind of bolted if you're trying to change something at the business level. You know, you can do certain things, you know, such as I've taken on a lot of people with good core competencies that I can see that will be have great parity to what's needed in the role in Distology, and that's worked great. But they're only going to tell a handful of people at that point. Their worlds get smaller as they get older. So we've got to try and tackle this at a younger age. And I know everybody says that. And how do we do it? And is it going to make a difference? But I think that we've got to do more career fairs. We've got to do more education to the teaching staff. We've possibly got to even try and get more technical types of subjects or more subjects around technology industry into the curriculum somehow. There was a great course at Manchester University, actually. It's a business course, but with technology. So what they do, and this is one of them, it's a unique course actually, but there needs to be a lot more of them. They're looking at business and businesses and growing businesses that are using technology to their advantage. And I mean in terms of apps and how technology can advance their businesses. So they're trying to look at how to build business, as you do in a business studies type degree, but they're looking at how technology can speed up that rate of growth, can actually benefit the business. And ultimately, we become a far more, or they become a far slicker organization. And that's the first time I've ever seen a course that wraps in the importance of technology to business development and new business growth or founding of new businesses, which is phenomenal. And loads more of that needs to, because creating technology for those guys who are good at doing it is the easy bit in some respects. Right? It's the promotion, it's the brand build, it's the market relevance, it's the research around it, it's how you penetrate. All of those things are what really makes a good product sell. You know, you've got to look at the likes of Beta and VHS years and years ago. The adoption rate, there we need commercial guys. We need them to understand the technology and the way it works and how to grow it. But we need them to the commercial guys to actually start looking at what it is that really makes that a successful product, because there are hundreds of new technologies coming into the UK market almost on a monthly basis. It's not because they're not good technically, they're mostly good technically. It's everything else around that means that they are growing at the rate they are.
Yeah. So Hayley, look, this is stats that we've done from the research from our own gender diversity white paper last year. 61% of women in the IT channel in the UK feel they're underpaid. What's your views on that?
Feel they're underpaid, or actually know that they're underpaid? Feel they're underpaid.
Feel they're underpaid. There's a sensitivity about actually getting colleagues money, but they were asked it was 2019. We asked every female technical and salesperson, do you feel you're underpaid for your male colleague? And 61% said yes, they feel they're underpaid. But it is a bit of a guesstimate, but that's their actual opinion.
Okay. And the gender pay gap is an actual problem. It is an actual thing, and it's a lot of women probably won't know it because they won't necessarily challenge it or find out what their male counterparts are paid. There has been another study that I recently read by Robert Walters, a large, obviously, recruitment company, as you're probably aware of. 57% of women actually never negotiated a pay rise in their career due to lack of confidence. So I think that there are several things to address there, and this is only my opinion, but I think there is a problem with gender pay. There certainly isn't in Distology, never will be, never has been. I know smaller companies can actually be a lot fairer because they can control it to a certain extent. But I think that we've got to look at the management and senior level individuals to try and tackle that problem, because you can't change it overnight. This is going to have to be something that board level discussions are absolutely prioritised about gender pay gaps, and also encourage women to actually talk about gender pay gaps and pay gaps generally. And if they feel they're being mispaid, underpaid, then go and talk to their managers and actually lobby a little bit more. And I know it sounds like we're fighting for that parity, but it really shouldn't be something to fight for. If you're doing an equal job, I mean, you know, there's been so many studies and research and done on these on this at a young age to feel that do men and women feel, or do girls and boys feel that they are you know, worthy more than another, and it's not true. We learn that behaviour, so I think it is about trying to absolutely board level down, get rid of the gender pay gap.
Yeah, to echo what you just said there, it really is a thing. You know, men will go and actually ask for pay rises. I'm hearing it out throughout the channel all the time, whereas women are waiting to be given a pay rise, and unfortunately that has got to change, and that's an individual thing as well. I think people they've got to have the confidence to go and ask for it. Obviously, that's on an individual basis. One question that's really frightening, and again, I'm going to probably get shut down for it. This is not my view, IT channel. I'm just, before I say that, this is the stats I'm hearing. 64% of women have been asked to dress in a certain way or use their charm to get work. Can you believe that? 64%. Now, I said this is the stats from 2019 that 64% of women have been asked to dress in a certain way or use their charm to get work. You know, that is just nuts, asking people to do that. But what's your view on how we can change that perception? Because that's definitely going to put women coming off into our industry if that's the perception.
Well, it's the way I've developed my career. Marketing is the only problem with it. But no, I genuinely speaking, I've never experienced that personally. Yeah. I think there was the study out, wasn't there? No, it wasn't a study. It was some story about somebody being asked to wear high heels in the workplace because it was the right thing to do as a woman, whatever. I think that's incredibly old school. I think that we are literally living on a fine line of you will get absolutely harangued for that nowadays. If anybody spoke to if any of them, the girls who work for me, the ladies who work for me, if anybody asked them to do anything other than just do a good job, I'd literally take someone to task. You know, they'd be out the door, quite frankly. It would just be awful. So again, I think that this is where I say men need to call out this kind of
it's a joke behaviour. It's a joke,
right? If you hear, I mean, if you, Mark, if you were sat in the office and you heard a guy say, "Hey, you know, you've got the important client coming in or whatever. Why don't you put on a bit of a low cut top?"
They would be working it. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous behaviour.
Even in jest, get out. You don't do that, mate. You don't do that. It's not what we do.
It's just bad manners. It's out of turn. This is just pathetic. It's just it's so dated. You know, 100 years ago, maybe, but not. You can't do that. It's so offensive to women as well. It really is. But what I found interesting was, and for all the male listeners out there, 64% of women this has happened to in the channel. If you're doing that in the channel right now, you will get lambasted by hopefully most men saying that, because it's just.
Well, I bloody hope so. I bloody hope so.
Because
that's the only way. That's the only way we're going to get rid of it.
Yeah. But my last one question was, and it is related to that. Once we've got these women in the industry, again, this is from the channel from last year. 44% of people feel sexually harassed in the IT channel in workplace, and also 62% of women have had unsolicited messages via social media, like Facebook, etc., that they're not warranted, that makes them feel uncomfortable in the professional workplace. So again, if any men are doing that, for God's sake, don't do that, because we can't get enough women in the industry, let alone if you're doing that. But how, what's your opinion on that, Hayley? Have you seen anything like that, or are you hearing stuff like that that's putting women coming into the industry?
Again, personally, I've not experienced it to the point where I felt intimidated, but experiencing it is horrific. Yeah. But I think that, and I'm not suggesting there's any sort of huge X Factor sob stories on that score, but it's absolutely fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
To put it mildly. there is no.
You really do. You got everything.
There's absolutely no excuse for that behaviour. I think we need to educate men, women, everybody that, you know, harassment in any capacity is just not what you do. You know, I know that people used to get away with it years ago. Of course they did. You know, that was then. But, you know, we also used to pee outside and light fires with 2 pieces of flint, for fuck's sake. You know, we're not going to do that, are we? So let's make sure that we are trying to run good ethical businesses, do good, exciting business in an industry, quite frankly, that's the most exciting industry. This is my 4th industry after graduating. The most exciting industry that we should be developing and adopting and wanting to see well. And just act appropriately, you know?
Do you know what, Hayley? I couldn't echo that more. You know, we are in the best industry to work in. And if we can encourage more women to come into it, and if we do get those, 50% male, 50% female, what an industry, what a fantastic industry we'll be in for everyone to enjoy. But this sort of stuff, I completely echo your thoughts. You know, any company, any channel company out there that's accepting even banter as sexual harassment or unsolicited emails on personal accounts and stuff like that, and things acceptable, you're going to be in the minority, because most people in the channel think that's, well, I'm hoping all people in the channel think it's acceptable, but they're certainly the minority. We need to stand that out straight away. So I'm glad that you echoed those thoughts. My last question for you, Hayley: how did you get into tech, and what advice would you? Obviously, I know you went into the toiletry sector to start with, so not IBM. But how did you get into tech, and what advice would you give someone, a female, who wants to get into the industry or is thinking about getting into the industry?
Well, firstly, I'm not going to just advise females to get into the industry. I'm going to advise anybody who's talented, who wants to come into the industry.
Yeah, great.
Barriers should be very low. I got into it, like most people, I think, by just kind of tripped and fell, and there I was. It was more about the fact that I was doing a sales and marketing role in several different aspects. In fact, I was a headhunter for 6 years and set up the Dell team in Moscow, and did quite a few engagements with supply chain, mostly sort of Six Sigma personnel. But I enjoyed working in the tech space, and so I was living fairly locally to Stockport, which is where our office is, and I reached out after I had my last child and went to go into work. And look, just fell into this role, not this role with Distology, fell into a distribution role, and came in a second in command at to a distributor that then got bought by Arrow, and that was it. And I didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. I thought, what the hell? Why do you have distribution? What's going on? What's software? What's going on? And I'm using it. I was, we all had computers, but yeah, and was totally naive, but totally loved it, because the energy about it, the fast-paced nature of what it does, and the innovation, the people, mostly the people, and I just stuck with it. And I think I got where you can really make a difference, and most people can make a difference in a fast-paced industry if they apply themselves. But you've got to keep challenging yourself. If something's innovating so goddamn fast, how much more can I do to make it a better experience? Because what happens when you have, things that are moving at pace is often a watered down service level. It's often quick. Are you placing or chasing? Are you buying quickly? Is it end of quarter? Is it end of month? And it's benign. It's a really benign, passive, transactional exercise. So, to slow that down a bit and create real value around it is actually a skill set that certainly we have here at Distology. And it really makes a difference. So I go home knowing that I've made somebody smile, knowing that I've made somebody go, oh, thank God, my life's a bit easier today. Maybe because I'm a bit of a fixer, but the guys here as well are equally as passionate as I am. So that drives me continually forward. And yeah, so I sort of tripped and fell, in short.
Great. Hayley, you've been a fantastic guest. If anyone wants to reach out to you directly, or any sort of young women who wants some advice getting into the industry, can they reach out to you on LinkedIn? Is that the best place to get to you?
Anybody, man, woman, animal, they can reach out to me if they want to get into this wonderful industry that we're in. And women, by the way, are not an alien race. We've not just come from the planet.
Hayley, you've been a fantastic guest. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for joining us and listening to another episode of our Channel Chat podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard and are listening on iTunes, please could you give us a review and subscribe in order to get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Otherwise, as always, we release an episode every Thursday at midday, so hopefully you can join us then.